Are shortcuts worth it? One day I took one of my day-long cycling adventures. I had not ventured on this particular route before, so I looked at the map before I ventured out to determine the best roads for cycling. As I examined the map, I noticed a route that I thought would result in reduced car traffic on the road and make the ride safer for me. I also noticed that the proposed route cut through some backcountry and resulted in what looked like a bit of a shortcut for one leg of the journey. With an anticipated 100-kilometer plus round-trip cycling adventure, I didn't mind cutting off a few kilometers along the way. As I arrived at the point where the shortcut began, I joyfully turned off the main highway and began my trek. I felt somewhat relieved for turning off the main road because the car traffic was heavy. After only a few minutes of cycling on the backcountry road, however, lines of cars started to pass me. Car after car after car after car. I realized the route had no less traffic than the main highway. I was to realize after 10 kilometers that the reason for the heavy car traffic was a ski resort that turned to a summer amusement park was attracting a lot of families on this beautiful Saturday. Did you notice I mentioned ski resort? Where there is a ski resort, there are hills. And as I approached the ski resort, the topography became more and more undulating. Said another way, the cycle became more and more of a challenge. A few of the hills were among the steepest I had ever descended and ascended. The descents were thrilling, but the ascents were grueling. I carried on, however. Shortly after I passed the ski resort, the terrain leveled out and the next 10 kilometers were quite picturesque and pleasant to cycle. I eventually came back out on the main road that I had left 25 kilometers ago, feeling a bit smug that I had cut off some time from my adventure. After 7 hours of cycling, I arrived back home. I had enjoyed the adventure so much that I vowed to make the trip again. So a couple of weeks later, I ventured back to the same route. But this time, I decided to take the shortcut, or I decided not to take the shortcut, and stayed on the main highway for the entire trip. I was pleasantly surprised that the longer way around was a much more gentle ride compared to the very undulating terrain the supposed shortcut had offered me a couple of weeks earlier. And this time, the round trip actually took me an hour less, even though I went a longer overall distance. So, not only did the supposed shortcut result in a much more grueling and difficult cycle, it actually didn't save me any time at all. It turns out it took me longer to get to where I wanted to go. I laughed at my foible and the symbolism in the experience. Are shortcuts worth it? On my cycling adventure, the supposed shortcut wasn't a shortcut at all. I expended more energy than the long way around, and it didn't save me any time. It actually took me longer.